Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, with my Week 7 2014 NFL predictions. Well, last week, I had another very consistent week. I went 10-4 and 1. So overall for the year now, I am 55, 35, and 1. See, now, ever since that Cincinnati Bengals Carolina Panthers game, that has really irritated me that for another straight year, I'm going to have a 1 in my record along with my wins and losses. And just to give my thoughts about the game, I thought the game was very competitive. Cam and them had a lot of good moments. Cam Newton ran for the second highest amount of rushing yards he had in his career, and he made a lot of good throws and a lot of good decisions. While on the other hand, Andy Dalton, he did not make some of the best decisions. I remember on that third and goal, he threw that pick, and Antoine Cason got down to about the 10-yard line, and that basically saved the momentum for the game. And then realizing that both kickers kicked field goals, it was like I thought there was going to be a tie at that point. But then to realize the Bengals had gotten down to about the Carolina 16, and all they had to do was kick a 36-yard field goal to win, and their kicker Mike Nugent missed it. It really irritated me that you can't in the NFL move forward from that game, because by both team standards, the Bengals were robbed and the Panthers were saved. Because now a tie, it's one of those odd things in the NFL. It doesn't happen that often. It affects the team in such an awkward way that right now the Bengals are still first in their division, but they've only won 70% of their games. Where if they had the win, they actually would have only won 66%. So they ended up actually having a better win percentage. But now that tie for the long haul will hurt them in a tight race against the Bengals, Browns, and Steelers. I thought the game was very entertaining, and also was the highest scored overtime game to go in a tie. So I guess to both teams, the Bengals, you need a kicker, and the Panthers, congratulations, you survived that game, and you should be thankful. Let me see. Some other big headlines from the weekend. Congratulations to Peyton Manning to getting 3 touchdowns closer to breaking Brett Favre's record. In the game against the New York Jets on Sunday, he threw 3 more touchdowns to get his touchdown numbers up to 506. And this week, I do believe he will break the record against the San Francisco 49ers due to the fact that San Francisco secondary is not all cracked up to be, in my opinion, even though they have been playing very well over the last few weeks against the Eagles, the Rams, and the Chiefs. They put up consistent games. But going up against this receiving core, the best in the league, I don't see that secondary nearly having as much success. Though, I will say the New York Jets, once again, played very tough. That game was a lot more competitive than anybody thought it would be. And actually, the Jets had a chance to tie the game. Geno Smith, about 2 minutes left from his end zone, had a chance to tie the game with a game-tying drive. But what has Geno done and continues to do? He threw a pick six to Aqib Talib, who high-stepped it into the end zone. And it just continues to show that this team has been very well coached by Rex Ryan for the talent that's been given. And it's Geno's fault. He's the catalyst for the reason they are 1-5. And they have the first ever 5-game losing streak in the Rex Ryan era. So, and I think that will continue this week against the Patriots, but I'll get that in a second. Let's see. Kudos to the Baltimore Ravens, my Baltimore Ravens, for having a very impressive 48-17 win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. By the end of the first quarter, we were up 28-0. That set a franchise record for most points scored in a quarter, and it also set a career high for Joe Flacco in touchdown throws. And for Tampa, it just really continues to show how inept this team is, because just when you think that they can almost win games against New Orleans, Carolina, St. Louis, they beat Pittsburgh, but now if you look at Pittsburgh, what happened to them against Cleveland and over the last few weeks, that really hasn't been that impressive. It just really shows how inept they are, because to not be home in a month, and then to have the opportunity to play at home, and you lose like that, it really shows that Lovey really does not have the grasp of this team. and I feel really bad for them. Even though I do think next year they do have talent, but they need to clean some house once again. Let's see. Congratulations to the Dallas Cowboys. How about them Cowboys, Cowboy fans? For the first time since 2007, you are 4 games above 500. And for the first time since 2007, you have a 5-game win streak. And it was probably the most emphatic win of the season, what you did against the Seattle Seahawks. I thought it was extremely impressive. That offensive line manhandled that Seattle defensive front. The Legion of Boom got exposed tremendously. Romo and the boys went 10 of 17 for third down, just like what San Diego did. So you're realizing that this Seattle defense does not nearly have as much bite as it did last year. Because when you're converting about 59% of your third downs, you're going to win the game because eventually you're going to tire out your defense. And that's what happened with the Cowboys. They were able to systematically tire them down. And if you think about it, the Seahawks only scored a grand total of about 3, 6, 9. They only scored about 15 points of offense against this Cowboy defense. If it wasn't for a block punt, a fumble, and all those other miscues, the Dallas Cowboys would have thoroughly beaten the Seahawks. And they did in the other statistical categories. Seattle only gained about 200 yards of offense. Dallas gained 400 yards. And also, if you look at Tony Romo and his team, they are running the ball consistently left, and Romo has been able to stand in the pocket and make big-time throws, especially the one he made to Terrence Williams, which to me is the catch of the year right now. It's going to be hard for other people, including myself, to find another catch that was better than that. But in some ways, again, Seattle did put up a good fight, and it was a close game. But now you have to realize these Dallas Cowboys are legitimate, and in my opinion, they are one of the top 3 teams in the league, and I might even go as far as they are the best team in the NFL. That would be just me from looking at their 6-game resume. But kudos to them. Let's see. Kudos to Green Bay. Couple more here before I get on to my picks. Kudos to Green Bay for gutting that win out against Miami. I know people were looking at Green Bay and go, how could you struggle that much against Miami? But Miami played extremely well. But Ryan Tannehill, once again, showed his flaws. Because those 2 picks were deadly and costly, along with the 4th and goal that caused the fumble. And it prevented them from having any points. I don't understand why they did that. They should have taken the points. Because if you think about it, the game would have been 28-27 or, and they probably could have won the game with that field goal, but they decided not to take it. And Aaron Rodgers, look, I understand that was pretty funny in Miami to do the fake spike, just be like Marino. Even though that play was very almost costly because if Devontae caught that ball and Cortland Finnegan, a very well-respected corner, a former All-Pro corner, was just able to make the tackle, the Packers would have lost that game. But it didn't happen, and again, the NFL was not a woulda, coulda, shoulda league. What happened, happened. Kudos to Aaron Rodgers. Shows how valuable it is, and shows how, once again, how Miami, they have all the talent, they just can't put it all together. And lastly, I want to give congratulations to the Arizona Cardinals for getting their stuff back together and getting Palmer back, because when you see Carson Palmer in that offense, it looks a lot better. And I am happy to have him back, and I think this Cardinal team now is more legitimate, and they'll be more focused for all their games ahead. That's what I thought on last week. Time for my picks. Tomorrow night, when the 1-5 New York Jets go to the 4-2 New England Patriots, I am taking the New England Patriots. And then on Sunday, when the 2-4 Atlanta Falcons go to the 4-2 Baltimore Ravens, I am taking the Baltimore Ravens. When the 2-4 Tennessee Titans go to the 1-5 Washington Redskins, I am taking the Washington Redskins. When the 3-2 Seattle Seahawks go to the 1-4 St. Louis Rams, I am taking the Seattle Seahawks. When the 3-2 Cleveland Browns go to the 0-6 Jacksonville Jaguars, I am taking the Cleveland Browns. When the 2-3 Minnesota Vikings go to the 3-3 Buffalo Bills, I am taking the Buffalo Bills. When the 2-3 Miami Dolphins go to the 3-3 Chicago Bears, I am taking the Chicago Bears. When the 2-3 New Orleans Saints go to the 4-2 Detroit Lions, I am taking the Detroit Lions. when the 3-2-1 Carolina Panthers go to the 4-2 Green Bay Packers, I am taking the Green Bay Packers. When the 2-3 Kansas City Chiefs go to the 5-1 San Diego Chargers, I am taking the San Diego Chargers. When the 4-1 Arizona Cardinals go to the 0-5 Oakland Raiders, I am going to take the Arizona Cardinals. When the 3-3 New York Giants go to the 5-1 Dallas Cowboys, I am taking the Dallas Cowboys. And in the Sunday night game, when the 3-2 San Francisco 49ers go to the 4-1 Denver Broncos, I am taking the Denver Broncos. And then on Monday night, when the 3-3 Houston Texans go to the 3-3 Pittsburgh Steelers, I am taking the Houston Texans. And for all fantasy owners out there, the Philadelphia Eagles and Tampa Bay Buccaneers both have byes this week, so Nick Foles, LaShawn McCoy, Jeremy Maclin, the Bucs defense, Doug Martin, Mike Glennon, Vincent Jackson, Mike Evans. If you have any of those players on your fantasy teams, bench them because they are not playing this week. All right, time for my thoughts. Jets and Patriots, I'm taking the New England Patriots in this game. This is fairly easy. The New England Patriots have started to get back to form. I do like how, they have scored 43 and 37. So that's 80 points of offense in the last 2 games. Their defense made some big plays. Rob Ninkovich had a monster game against that Buffalo Bill offensive line, and they were able to cause turnovers. And they've been able to cause a turnover in every one of their games this season. I think that's a big reason for their consistent success. I do believe that losing Gerard Mayo again for the second straight year and losing Stephen Ridley for the year of a torn ACL will affect them a lot because Gerard Mayo is the leader of their defense. He's the one that's able to figure out plays and get the defense in certain areas, but they do have Vince Wilfork there. They still have Revis there, who's a big leader. They are getting Brandon Browner back. He's on the squad. And they do have James White. They do have Vereen still, and they have Bolden still there. And they still have enough running backs that it'll do. But I just don't think it's really not going to matter that much because, again, I think the Jets are happy to finally play a quarterback that they are more aware of. Since if you look at their schedule, they played Derek Carr, Aaron Rodgers, Jay Cutler, Matthew Stafford, and Peyton Manning and Phillip Rivers. They are quarterbacks that they rarely face a lot of the time. Though with Tom Brady, they face him twice a year, and they've been pretty successful against Tom Brady. In fact, the last game the Jets and Patriots played, Rex Ryan won. However, that streak will end because I just feel that New England just has a lot more talent. And even if the Patriots' offensive line still looked as bad, and I think that Jet defense can get to that line because their defensive line has been very impressive. But I think Geno's going to give them the ball, and they're going to be able to get enough points, even no matter how the offense plays, that they're going to score enough because the Jets won't get out of their own way. I think at this point, if Geno messes up on this Thursday night, they need to give Michael Vick the keys because at 1-6, they still might have a little bit of chance. But Geno can't be held that accountable and still not have a pass. It's unbelievable looking at how bad he's played. He has literally given the games to the Bears, to the Lions, to the Packers. He's basically given the teams the victories. And against this Patriot team, even though they're not the greatest offensively, they're starting to get their rhythm. I just feel that with that, also Geno's going to give them the ball. This Patriot team is just way too talented and starting to pick up their momentum for me not to pick against them. And also, they are undefeated in the month of October, and they're 32-4 against the AFC East since 2002 at home. So I feel pretty confident in that. So that's why I'm taking the Patriots over the Jets. The Ravens over the Falcons. I'm taking the Baltimore Ravens to beat the Atlanta Falcons due to the fact that the Baltimore Ravens very quietly have been one of the better teams in the league. I think they are definitely top 10 worthy just because in every one of the Ravens games, they've either dominated teams or they've been in them that they could win. They played an Indianapolis offense that was on fire and held them to a grand total of 20 points. They dominated the Buccaneers and beat them by 31. We beat the Steelers by 20. We beat the Panthers by 28. So, yeah, we are proving that we are more consistent. And also, I'm just looking at Atlanta, and they just can't stop anybody. Justin Forsett, who's been having a great year in place of Ray Rice, he should be able to run through that Falcon defense just like Matt Forte was. And then you look at their corners. I think Steve Smith, who knows the Falcons very well due to his days in Carolina, he's going to have another field day against this secondary. Another secondary got hurt. And I just feel that Matt Ryan will not be able to make the bigger plays, even though he is playing a weaker secondary in the Ravens secondary. So I will say that he has a better chance. But a dome team losing at home against the Bears, who were struggling the way they did, they weren't able to convert. And I think our defense has been shut down enough that we're going to prevent that. We're going to present that big of a problem that once again Atlanta's going to lose on the road and go to 0-4 on the road, which is unbelievable. And again, it just goes back to my point that I've told people: Mike Smith is on the verge of getting fired because he had a 3-13. He had a 4-12 year last year. He has to get at least 9 wins, and even a playoff berth of how consistent he's been before. But I don't think it's going to happen starting this week, just due to the fact of the consistent Ravens and how they've been. So I think the game can be interesting due to the lack of secondary, but I'm taking the Ravens based on better overall talent, a better overall play of feel, and also Atlanta's on the road. And playing a good Raven team at home, we usually don't lose at home. So that's what I'm taking the Ravens to beat the Falcons. Washington over Tennessee, I'm taking the Redskins just based on the fact that, look, I am starting to get off the Kirk Cousins bandwagon. I was big on it before, but now I've seen him play, and he's starting to show again that he deserves to be the backup quarterback in Washington. When you put up games like the Giants, the Seahawks, and the Cardinals game in that 3-game stretch, along with maybe him losing at Philadelphia, you're just seeing that he's a backup quarterback, and RG3 should feel comfortable now. He hasn't lost his job. He realizes that once RG3 comes back, he's going to be the quarterback of that team. And it was just frustrating because Kirk Cousins, again, gave the game to the Cardinals. He threw 3 straight interceptions, and one, literally the safety was right there. Rashad Johnson was right there, and he just ran it back into the end zone. So, even though with all that, they're playing the Titans, who had to get a blocked field goal and a 5-yard onside kick that they touched. Remember, in that game, Josh Scobie kicked the ball 5 yards. For an onside kick, you need 10. He kicked it 5, and the Titans touched it. So it was a live ball, and the Jaguars recovered it. They needed a blocked field goal to win that game. Against the Jags, you let Blake Bortles drive down the field that quick and then get an onside kick, and I thought Scobie could have made that, but they didn't. And just overall, Tennessee just does not nearly have the talent. Once they stop Bishop Sankey, they're going to be able to win the game because I think that secondary, even though, again, Hall's out and David Anderson now has concussion, I just don't really buy that team because the Redskins just have way more talent. They have a much better pass rush. Their secondary is somewhat better. I think, that'll be... But they have a better running back and they have a better quarterback. Because if I had to take a banged-up Jake Locker or a veteran Charlie Whitehurst over Kirk Cousins, I will take Kirk Cousins in this game. And also, the last time they won was at home. So maybe if they're playing a weak Tennessee team, they'll get some confidence in them. And they should be able to win just based off more talent. They're at home, and they have been able to basically be in every one of their games and against better teams. And I feel that this Titan team is not this Redskin team. And that's why I'm taking the Redskins to beat the Titans. Seattle over St. Louis. This was tough for me because I was really disappointed in how Seattle played. But just looking at what's happened from their losses, they respond very quickly. And I just feel, again, that St. Louis, they did a phenomenal job against the Niners for the most part. Austin Davis, I am becoming a big Austin Davis fan. I feel that he is definitely a guy that they can build around because he is putting up numbers and he is playing consistent enough that this is a guy that can be your quarterback for right now based on how he's playing for the future. Though I still don't think that's nowhere near enough to beat this motivated Seattle team. Seattle has now gotten to a level where they don't lose games back-to-back consistently as often, and they're going to be angry and motivated. And they realize that this is their first divisional game. So they want to make a statement to the Cardinals and Niners saying that we are still the leaders of this division. Do I think the Rams can put up a fight? Absolutely. They put up a fight in St. Louis last year. Remember, the final score of that game was 14-9. However, and I think Austin Davis can make some plays. because you're starting to see that speed and deception and also third down conversions can weaken the Seahawks. But that Ram defensive front has not been able to get any pressure, just like unlike what happened last year. And I feel that if Russell Wilson can stand around and have time, he will be able to make plays and get this Rams defense confused. And I think that will be enough, along with Austin Davis making a mistake or the big mistake in the bigger moment, to get the Seahawks short field and beast mode running through that defensive line, because they're giving up about 130 yards a game running through the ground, even though Frank Gore, last night, he only ran for about 30 yards on 16 carries. So kudos to them for stopping Frank, but they really haven't been able to stop anybody else on the ground this year at all either. So with that, that's why I'm taking the Seahawks to beat the Rams. Cleveland to Jacksonville. Again, another kind of easy pick. I think Cleveland has gotten a good spark under them. They are one of the most underrated teams in the league. If you look at their 5 games, they have been in every one of their 5 games. This team right now could be 5-0. But they have had a few unfortunate shortcomings, and they've been on the wrong side of those close wins. But I just feel like they're getting momentum. Brian Hoyer is playing very good quality football for this team. He has not been making mistakes. They have been using the weapons that they have had, and they've used them to a T. And also that defense has been balling out. They have been destroying offensive lines, even though good luck to Mr. Alex Mack, the center for the Browns. Hopefully he can come back. Mike Penn says he can. I don't think so, because when you have a broken fibula at this point of the year, I think that's going to be way too short of a time not to be able to come back. And look, do I think Jacksonville can put up a fight? Yeah, they can. I think, again, they have played well somewhat in the majority of their games, their last 2 games. They played very well against Pittsburgh, and they played very well against Tennessee, and they probably should have beaten Tennessee. But I'm going to take this defense to cause Blake Bortles to have more rookie mistakes. They're going to be able to run the ball very well, because they are the only team in the NFL with 3 running backs that have over 200 yards of rushing each. That is very impressive for 3 guys to have over 200 yards. And I just feel that defense will shut down that offense enough that Bortles will make mistakes, give the Browns short field, and Brian Hoyer should be able to work through this Jacksonville defense, because they have given up. They are the second worst. They have the second worst defense in the league, and so with that, that's why I'm taking the Browns to win. Colts over Bengals. I'm taking the Indianapolis Colts to beat the Cincinnati Bengals based on the fact that that defense now, over the last 2 weeks, has given up 80 points in their last 2 games. That defense that, was the best defense at giving up points through the first 3 games. They only averaged 10. They've given up about 40 in the last 2. And also, I just love how this Indy team is playing. This Indianapolis team is on a very good roll. They have now beaten the Ravens, Texans, Jags, and Titans. The first 2 games you can discount. The other 2, you have to give them credit for that. I do understand that Houston game easily could have gone Houston's way if a J.J. Watt interception gets dropped, or Andre Johnson and Fitzpatrick don't fumble in the last 5 minutes of the game. However, I think the big reason why I'm taking Indianapolis is I don't think Mohamed Sanu can have that kind of impact like he did last week. He had his best game as a pro. I saw a lot of good throws by him. And also, I just feel that they're going to miss A.J. Green. You realized how much of that offense runs through him. And I think Indianapolis' defense has been very shut down. I think Vontae Davis can take out Mohamed Sanu, leaving Dalton maybe only the tight end. And also, I just feel that Indianapolis at home has been a more impressive team, and their defense is coming alive under Pagano. And also, Pagano knows the Bengals a bit due to his time in Baltimore. And just about A.J. Green and Luck's kind of momentum and this team's momentum, I'm going to take the Colts in this one. I think the game can be very competitive, but when you have a tie game the way the Bengals did and you win a close game by Indianapolis, I think Indianapolis is more motivated and they are more in a better position than the Bengals right now. And I think Andrew Luck can dissect his defense better than Cam Newton did. And also, I feel Indianapolis' defense will cause Dalton to have a few turnovers where Cam couldn't capitalize on them. I think Andrew will. I think this game is a very competitive game. You have very good defense against a very good offense, but I'm going to take the home team along with the hotter team, because now I think the Bengals are starting to show their weaknesses. And when you have a tie like that, I don't think they're going to be able to climb out as quick as they would like. So that's why I'm taking the Colts to beat the Bengals. The Bills over the Vikings. I'm taking the Buffalo Bills based on the fact that Minnesota's offensive line was pathetic against Detroit. They gave up 8 sacks. But also at the same time, they really couldn't run on anything. And Teddy Bridgewater, my gosh, what a fall from grace he had. He went from having a very impressive rookie game to only throwing for 188 yards and 3 interceptions. And the worst thing is that those interceptions, they were rookie mistakes, but they were just bad. He threw an interception off a pump fake. How bad does that have to get? I'm not trying to say that he is a rookie, but to have that big of a contrast from your first game where you threw for 317 yards, you ran for another 20 and a touchdown, but then you go to 188 yards and no touchdowns and 3 picks, and your offense scores a grand total of 3 points. And look, I understand Detroit's defense is the number 1 defense in the league, but it really starts to question again, who is the real Teddy Bridgewater, and is this guy a franchise guy you can carry? And I just see with Buffalo's defense, the way they have been playing, the way Darius and those guys have been pulling the offensive lines apart. They lead the league in sacks. They've been very competitive. I think Kyle Orton can shred up that Minnesota secondary just like Stafford was able to do. And I think Buffalo has enough weapons around them because I love Watkins going up against their corners. And I just feel that Buffalo will be able to smother the Minnesota offensive line again. And Teddy Bridgewater, even if he tries to throw, won't have nearly enough time. Because I think if you have Buffalo's offensive line, which is done pretty well, even though Kyle Orton does need to hold on to the ball, I think Buffalo's defense and pass rush will carry them to this win based on the fact that they can stop McKinnon or Asiata. And I don't think at this point Teddy Bridgewater can play a defense like Buffalo's and have that much success. I think the game will be interesting because both guys at quarterback really aren't that impressive. I also think Buffalo has a big edge in the running game, and I think they have a little bit of an edge at wide receiver based on the fact of Watkins and Woods and Goodwin, who are a pretty good three-man combo compared to Minnesota's. But I'm going to take Buffalo. It's at home, and I just love that defense. If Detroit's defense can do that against Minnesota's, I can see Buffalo's doing the same exact thing. So that's what I'm taking the Bills to beat the Vikings. Miami at Chicago. I'm taking Chicago based on the fact that Chicago proved me wrong last week. That was a good kind of comeback win for them because they shut down a very high-potent Atlanta offense in the Dome. And also Jay Cutler was back to form. He made some beautiful throws to Alshon Jeffrey, who led the team of over 130 yards receiving. And I'm just looking at Ryan Tannehill, and I'm kind of seeing a Matt Ryan. That Ryan Tannehill will give this game to the Bears. He just seems like he doesn't fully have all his bearings yet. And look, can Miami's defense get through that Bear offensive line better than Atlanta's? Yes, because Miami is a much better defense. But if I had to choose between Jay Cutler and Ryan Tannehill, who's going to win me a game, I'm going to take Jay Cutler. And also, Noshawn Moreno is now out for the year with a torn ACL, and I think that's huge because that was the majority of their running game. I feel really bad for him because this was his big opportunity. But now for Lamar Miller, this is your big opportunity, kid, to prove that you are the franchise guy in Miami to stay. Do I think this game can be very competitive? Yes, because both defenses really have not shown the best in stopping people for the majority of the time. And Chicago will give Miami a few opportunities to get in their own way. But I think with that counteraction or cancellation between the Bears and Dolphins, the Bears right now just have a better overall team and a better kind of feeling about them offensively and defensively compared to Miami's. And that's why I'm taking the Bears to beat the Dolphins. Detroit over New Orleans. I'm taking Detroit in this one based on the fact that I'm just not trusting the Saints team. This is probably the most pathetic I've seen the Saints in the last almost 10 years. If you look at their schedule and look how they played, they lost to Atlanta on the road by a field goal. They lost to Cleveland on the road by a field goal. They go to their home opener and they beat the Minnesota Vikings by a grand total of 11 points, 20-9. Then they go to Dallas and get thumped by the Cowboys, 37-19. Then they have Tampa at home, and it takes them overtime to beat the Bucs, where Drew Brees threw 2 interceptions. So, look, I understand Calvin Johnson might not play and that'll be big. But will that really matter in this kind of game? I do not think so. Because also Jimmy Graham will not be in that game. And I'm kind of frustrated with that because he's on my fantasy team. But that's a whole other conversation, a whole other day. But I just feel, again, New Orleans will be in Detroit. They're not going to be in the Dome. And Detroit's defense should be able to do enough. Detroit has been able to cause mistakes and cause turnovers. They got 8 sacks on an offensive line that was not that good. And that New Orleans offensive line really has not been that good themselves. And I just don't think Breeze going up against that defense, I don't think he'll be able to make enough plays to beat this line team. Look, I understand, Breeze has better weapons going into town, but I think Stafford can equally match Breeze. And I think if they get Reggie Bush back, that'll be a huge fact, because I think Reggie Bush is better than Kyrie Robinson and Pierre Thomas and Ingram, who they are still missing, by the way, because of a broken hand. But I'm going to take Detroit on this one based on the fact that that defense can smother the Saints, and the Saints are on the road. And when you have those two factors together, along with a shaky Drew Brees, because Drew Brees has not played up to Drew Brees level that everybody knows, I'm going to take Detroit on that one based on that. They are at home. They have the number 1 defense in the league. And with Jimmy Graham out, I just don't know if Brees can trust Brandon Cooks or, Meacham's not, or Meacham or Joe Morgan to be their main guys, or Josh Hill to be that main source of offense. I think the game can be competitive if Brees has enough time, because that secondary has proven not to be that good. And also, if it goes into kicking, I'll give New Orleans an advantage, because Detroit is the house of horrors for kickers. I couldn't believe Matt Prater missed a 44-yard field goal and a 50-yarder, because he was probably the best kicker in the league last year. So, Detroit, Bull and Al Davis. Say that the first pick in the draft will be a kicker, or your first pick will be a kicker. But that's why I'm taking Detroit to beat New Orleans. Carolina at Green Bay. I'm taking the Green Bay Packers to win this game based on the fact that Green Bay has done fairly well. And I kind of like Rodgers beating Newton. I think they have a better advantage of running game, because Eddie Lacy, for the most part, had somewhat a decent game. But again, he kind of got stuffed by the Miami defense. But also with Jonathan Stewart now still being hampered by injuries, and Angelo Williams still having an injury. Mike Tolbert's on IR reserve. IR. Sorry, he's on injured reserve, and they really haven't been able to run the ball that much since. And I think with Green Bay's defense, they have been vastly improved from last year, and I think they will be able to stop Carolina's run game a bit, because I think they'll be smart enough to look at Newton and account for Newton. But I just don't like Carolina's offense that much. That Carolina defense over the last several weeks has given up a grand total of over 21 points a game in their last 4 games. Yeah, they're giving up over 21 points a game. Where Green Bay, on the other hand, has given up 17, 10, and they did give up 24, but they were able to beat Miami. And if I just had to look at these two teams and see how they've done, Green Bay has just looked more competitive than Cincinnati has. Or Carolina has, I'm sorry. Carolina, again, should be thankful that the final score was tied so they could still be in top of the NFC South. But when you have these kind of games, I'm going to take the Packers secondary over Carolina's. I think Carolina has the edge in front, but everywhere else, the Packers have a better offensive line. They have better receivers than Carolina does, and they have the better quarterbacks. And that's the clincher for me, and that's what I'm thinking, the Packers to beat the Panthers. Chargers over Chiefs. I'm taking San Diego over KC. This is going to be a fun game to watch to me, because I think San Diego and KC, they match up very well, and their 2 games last year were very competitive and very entertaining. But here's where I have to take San Diego. I told my friend a few weeks ago I bolted up and bought on this Charger team, and even though they struggled against the Oakland Raiders, they still were able to win the game. Phillip Rivers, with a 5th straight game, had a passer rating over 120. He's thrown 15 touchdowns to 2 interceptions this year, and he is my MVP of the league so far because he's been that dominant. And there's just a part of me going, this San Diego defense has played very well over the last several weeks, and if I had to look, I think Brandon Oliver, he's been a good stud back, even though I do think Jamal and Niall Davis are a better combination. But San Diego has the edge of wide receiver, and they also have the edge in their secondary, because their secondary has been playing lights out for the most part. this season. I think the Oakland game was a bit of an admiration, but again, kudos to Derek Carr for playing how he did. I think this game, KC has a chance if they're able to hold on to the ball and run with it, and also if they can get through to their, big receiver, Dwayne Bowe. But they really, don't have that many other receivers besides him. And I think that running defense will do enough to hold Charles and Davis enough to not have that much of an impact. I think the game will be competitive, but maybe just like last year, I have the game going down to a field goal, and I'll take Nick Novak over that rookie kicker that they signed when they got rid of Suckup. I can't remember the guy's name now, but that's really not that important. But in this divisional game, I usually take the home team when it's kind of even, but I kind of think also that, again, San Diego's offense is more potent, San Diego's secondary is better than KC's, and San Diego just has a better overall momentum feel than KC right now. Because KC, even though they've been in all their games, they've lost more than they've won. And I think that kind of, against the San Diego team, will be kind of the difference that gets San Diego this win. Arizona at Oakland, easy. Arizona, 4-1. Pretty much dominated a lot of their competition. Their secondary has been shut down. Oakland, kudos to Derek Carr for having his best game of his career. But again, he showed he was a rookie by throwing that interception on the San Diego 5 with a minute left. If he had that many problems with San Diego's defense, imagine what Patrick Peterson could do. Imagine what Antonio Cromartie can do. Imagine what Rashad and Tyron can do. I just don't like any of those factors going into this Raider team trying to beat this Arizona team. Arizona, across the board, maybe even in the running game, have a better team than the Oakland Raiders, who right now you could argue are the worst team in the league. And just with that, that's why I'm taking the Cardinals to beat the Raiders. The Cardinals are just more talented. It's in Oakland. Oakland's been very bad. And I just think that secondary is going to shut down those receivers. And Derek Carr is even going to make more mistakes, a la a Kirk Cousins type game. So that's why I'm taking the Cardinals to beat the Raiders. The Giants at the Cowboys. I'm taking the Dallas Cowboys based on the fact that the Dallas Cowboys right now, like I said, in my opinion, they are the best team in the league. They're on a 5-game winning streak. They just beat the Super Bowl champs at home. The second time the Seahawks have lost at home in the Russell Wilson era. And they just have dominated on offensive lines. And if you're looking at the New York Giants, they hoodwinked me again. Whenever you think the Giants are bad, everybody says, oh yeah, the Giants are done. No use for them. But what do? They win 3 straight games. And just when you think they're going to give you confidence, what do? They pitch a shutout. They lose 27-0. Eli Manning gets sacked 8 times, where he only got sacked 7 times in the first 5 games. Victor Cruz tears his patella tendon, and best of luck in his recovery. You also have Jermaine McBride getting on the injured reserve. That running game got shut down. Antrell Roll tells the media that they just had an off game, and LaShawn McCoy runs for they have over 200 yards of rushing offense, which is what the Eagles want. So if they had that many problems with an Eagle team that was struggling on defense, imagine what this Cowboy team can do. Rolando McClain is my defensive comeback player of the year. He is having a monster stud year for the Dallas Cowboys. Carr and Skandrick have been playing better. That whole team has been more physical. And that Giant defense, for the most part, if the Philadelphia offensive line could push them like that, the Dallas offensive line could push them even further back to let DeMarco Murray run. And again, I just feel this is a big game for Dallas due to the fact that this is their last 3 games are at home before they have their bye and they go to Jackson. So if they can win these 3 games and end up going on a 8-game winning streak, I think you would have to say Dallas would be the best team and they will win the NFC East. And I just feel with this kind of game, the Giants have a shot. Yes, they do. But after what I saw the Giants do, they are the roller coaster of the NFL. They go all the way up in about 5, 6, 7 weeks. They win. But then once they hit the bottom, they just keep free falling till they hit rock bottom. And I think this will continue their rock bottom trend because they started hitting it with Philadelphia. They're going to continue with Dallas. And they're going to continue it for the next couple weeks. But I think they play Indianapolis right after that. So they're going to continue to free fall on this downward spiral. Probably until they get to the Jacksonville game, which I think is at week 13. So that's why I'm taking the Cowboys to beat the Giants. Denver over San Francisco. This was tough for me because I loved what San Francisco did on Monday night. They had a monster game. Colin Kaepernick had his best game since week 1 of last year. But it was against the Rams defense. And Brandon Lloyd, he burned that 6th-round corner on that post route. Extremely veteran-esque. I think Brandon Lloyd, they are benefiting extremely for having him on this team. But here's the problem. When you have a defense like San Francisco's, which have a lack of secondary in a quarterback shootout, I have to take Peyton Manning. And also, Patrick Willis is down hurt. Now with Patrick gone, their leader, they still don't have Bowman, they still don't have Brooks. And just when you're looking at Tremaine Brock, who did not play, Vernon Davis is a questionable back. You look at the safeties the Broncos have, you look at the corners, what they have, that defense has extremely been improved. And also, I think they're going to be playing with a lot of motivation because they realize Peyton Manning can break the touchdown record this Sunday night against the Niners. And I know for a lot of Bronco fans, that might be a little bit of justice for the 1989 Super Bowl, for what happened there. And I hope for them that, Peyton can achieve the milestone. Congratulations. And with that, that's what I'm taking the Broncos to beat the Niners. I understand the defenses are both very good, but the secondaries are at 2 different levels. And if you are in a shootout-type game that this game looks out to be, I will take Peyton Manning's offense against the San Fran secondary over Colin Kaepernick going against that Denver secondary. Should be a great game, though, and it's going to be a good Sunday night game. And finally, for the Monday night game, I'm taking Houston because Pittsburgh has lost their way. These last 3 weeks have been pathetic for the Steelers. They lose to Tampa in the final 5 seconds, and then they go to Jacksonville and only beat them by 8. And then they get blown out by Cleveland, 31-10. That team just looks, they're getting older on defense. They really can't get anything going. And now you have Bill Cowher and Hines Ward, both Steeler icons, are saying that this team is soft. And when you start saying quotes like that, you have to look at the head coach like I am. And I am a big Mike Tomlin fan, but I'm starting to realize his days are numbered. And especially going up against that Houston defense, my God, if Paul Kruger and those boys can ravage them up, imagine what J.J. Watt can do against this Pittsburgh offensive line, which has been abused this year. And also, I think Pittsburgh will give enough penalties to the Texans for them to take advantage of it. And I'll take Andre Johnson over Cortez Allen. I'll take Arian Foster to run through this defense. Ben Tate had 2 touchdowns and about 50 yards through it. So I think Arian Foster, who's better than him, he'll be able to run through it. And I think Ryan Fitzpatrick will be able to not make as many mistakes because they won't have to. Because Pittsburgh offense will be so inept that they're going to get short field. And that's going to allow Fitzpatrick to give the ball to Foster and make more timely throws for them to win this game. So then again, that's why I'm taking the Texans to beat the Steelers. So those are all my picks for this week. Like, comment, rate, subscribe. If anybody has any questions or any comments on any of the video, please put them in the comment section. I love to debate people about sports, especially football. And that's it. So once again, the Philadelphia Eagles and Tampa Bay Buccaneers are on bye. So if you have any players on their fantasy team, bench them. And that's it. So best of luck to all players. Best of luck to all the teams. Best of luck to all fantasy owners. And best of luck to all fellow prognosticators. And until next week, this is Matt the Fanatic signing off. Until then, so long.